Hello, my name is Chris Belin. I'm the sole proprietor for Chris Belin's Traveling Drum School. Today I'm going to go over a little bit of hand drumming, and we'll do some things today where we can actually do kind of a virtual drum circle. So first things first though, I'm going to start off with the tones of a drum. Now it doesn't matter what type of drum you have. This drum right here, by the way, is pretty tall, so it's from sitting on the floor, it comes up to my waist. So if you have a chair or you're sitting on the couch, sitting on your bed, wherever you're sitting, just make sure when you hit your drum that you can drop your hands down nice and comfortable, not with the drum's way too low or way high up, anything like that. So this drum's called an Ishiko, and it's an African drum, and it's kind of a mixture of a djembe and a kunga. Don't worry, no tests in this class, so if you feel like looking up some words, or you can private message me, ask me questions about it, that's totally fine. But I'm going to kind of talk about the two drums I'm going to play today. So this is the Ishiko. Again, some of you may have a larger drum. If you have a smaller drum, you may have one that looks like this. This one here is usually referred to as a doumbek, but it's actually called a goblet drum. And that's actually because it's got the cylinder here, and then it thins out down below. All the air comes out of the bottom. So just a style of drum. And when you play this style of drum, whether it's long or short, sometimes it's called a derbuka, things like that, you can put it either like this, so the traditional way, where it rests directly on your thigh. This way works as well, depending on if you're right-handed, left-handed, however you feel more comfortable. But you can also put it right in between your knees, and if you cross your legs, you can get kind of the downward motion like you have on the bigger tall drum. So again, there's so many drums in the world, and that's one of the things I love about them, is every drum has its own unique sound. And not only that, some of them are different volumes, things like that, and different textures. This is actually a very smooth plastic kind of surface. This is plastic, but it's a little bit rougher. Sometimes they use traditional animal skin, or some kind of other synthetic blend. So it's pretty neat. We'll talk about shakers today too. So actually, if you don't have a drum, that's fine too. I've seen people use buckets, boxes. Cardboard box doesn't have a whole lot of tone, but pretty neat though. So you tap on anything you want. Even a drum set, you can hit a drum set with your hand, that's fine. So the most important thing I could show you with the drum to start is the main tones you can get out of it. So since I don't know what drum you have, I'm going to go over the four main sounds that are in every hand drum on the planet. And that's one reason why I have a pretty sizable collection of them, is they all have different sounds and characteristics. So the first tone I like to start with is the bass, and that's hitting directly in the center. So if I hit the center of the drum, let's say I bring my hand up like that, notice how when I hit it, I'm not holding my hand down. I'm letting my hand come up. Elbows moving. Move your wrist more if you want. Kind of rang on the higher end there a second ago. I'll talk about that in a moment. But there's your bass sound. Now I put my fingertips together too. That gives you a nice sound. So if you want to play along, I'll play a few times with this bass. We're just going to evenly tap. Rhythm I'm going to talk about today is quarter notes, which quarter notes is a rhythm that's counted 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we count that this way, think to yourself, 1, 2, 3, 4, or think bass, 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 bass. And notice when I say that word, it rings out for the amount of time in between my striking hits. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a really fun way to gauge you're getting the sound good. Now if you want to play a little bit slower, that's fine. 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice how my hand's coming up. Nice and relaxed though. You don't want to come down with a lot of force, or make sure your muscles aren't stiff because you'll hurt your hand. So I'm pulling the sound out of the drum, I'm not beating it out. So when we're done, I'm not going to be like, ow, my fingers, or my hand's not going to be all red, anything like that. It's going to be very relaxed kind of sound. I'm going to feel good after I'm done, no pain. Now, if you're a lefty, you can use the other hand. Technically, in hand drumming, you can do both. Back and forth is fine. Even same time. So that brings a lot more bass out of the drum. Now with the smaller drum, by the way, when you do that sound, a lot of times if you hit right in the center, your hand's covering the whole diameter of the drum. So your fingertips are actually the key for the small drum. So you do like that. This drum's tuned really high pitch. There's not a lot of bass. And do I hold it this way? There's some bass. The world of this drum, the doombeck, the doom is the bass sound. The doombeck comes from the two main terms that the two main sounds the drum makes, doom and beck. So I'll mention that a little bit later too. But anyway, so if you have a bongo, like the two drums together, or sometimes there's three, or any kind of small little hand drum, you may get the bass coming out from the center using the fingertips if it's smaller. Whole hand for the bigger drum. Back to the bigger drum, keep your fingers close together and take your thumb and put it right up against your pointer finger, kind of making it cup a little bit, almost like if you're, I just messed that up. If you're doing that clap thing, see, I usually don't clap that way. I clap like that. But if you get that air pocket in there, that air pocket here, a little more controlled. I see people use their fist and stuff. That a lot of times just ends up hurting your hand. You don't get as much tone. So the key to getting the full maximum bass tone is like that. Okay, so that's your tone number one. Your next tone is called the open sound. And I'm going to do the same hand technique, but I'm going to play a different part. So I'm going to move from the center to the edge. So I'm going to use my left hand just for a little comparison. So if I do my left hand, notice I hit the drum there. Sounds way different. Same hand motion. 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. Again, doesn't sting my hand at all or my fingers because I'm relaxed. So make sure if you want to stretch beforehand, that's fine. If you feel more comfortable just using the same hand for everything, that's fine. Just take your right hand, move it from the center, bring it back here. There's your open sound. So as long as you're hitting towards the edge, the higher pitch of the drum is coming out. So that's your open sound. Now if I play faster, my hand height would be lower. And that's really just a flick of the wrist there. It's pretty neat. Now, when it comes to the open sound as well, if you bring your fingers a little closer in, you're going to kind of get a mixture of the bass and the edge. So it's really important when you have a drum to really get used to the sounds it makes. We'll learn all kinds of rhythms, that's fine. When you get used to the sounds, you can mix up the different tones with the patterns you learn. Okay, so there's my open. A little further in, kind of getting into the bass world. Bring my hand a little bit further. See, the open sound gets deeper. All the way to the bass. So the next sound, sound number 3, is going to be called the slap. Now the slap is when you hit your drum. I like to think of it as a hit and a hold, right? So I hit it, boom, and I hold it down. So in the world of music, sometimes they call that an accent, where it's a louder note than everything else, draws attention to the drum. Now again, no pain in my hand, even though I'm hitting it and holding it, no stinging at all because my muscles are all relaxed. And I'm sitting up straight, not too high over the drum or not too low or anything like that, just nice and straight. So there's your slap. Now I'm using both hands here. Back and forth in drumming, this is called a drum roll. Now if you're right-handed, it's going to be a lot easier to start right. Go right, left, right, left. If you're left-handed, you're going to start the opposite way. No correct or incorrect when you're starting. Just make sure you keep it comfortable. Okay, so the difference between the slap and the open, since they're in the same area, open, rings, slap, mutes. So you hit it and you hold it. It kind of accents the tone real quick, like a snap, and it stops. Now that word I just used is actually the fourth tone, and it's officially a different kind of thing. It's called the mute. Now the mute is whenever you basically get rid of all sound. Think if you're, watching a television or listening to the radio and you mute. You just cut all the volume. So, of course, you're playing a drum. It's impossible to cut all the volume, but you can cut all the tone. So if I place my hand on the drum, really anywhere, but since this is a bigger drum, I'm going to put it in the center. And now if I hit this drum, it sounds kind of deep. But notice, there's no tone. I could be hitting my leg, hitting the floor, anything like that. It's pretty much an absence of tone. So that's your mute. So you hear that sound. Now, side note, notice I'm bringing my hand up. If I hold it down, it doesn't sound too much different. But if I compare the mute to the slap, here's a slap. See, there's a little bit of ring. Here's the mute. No ring at all. Now, whenever you do this tone here, the mute, let's say I bring my hand up. That's like doing the open sound with a mute. Now, if I do this mute here, and let's say I hold my hand down, the one that I'm striking with, sounds a little bit shorter of a note, a little bit harsh, a little bit of an attack sound, draws attention to the drum. This is called the muted slap. Mute slap, regular mute. Not too much different, but more of it's the playing style. And we'll talk about how we mix these tones together. So, to do a quick recap, we got your tones, your bass, your open, your slap, and your mute. Okay, so what I'm going to do to end the first part of this lesson is just so we can play along together. I'm going to play 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice, moderate tempo, nothing too fast, too slow. But I'm going to mix between the tones. If you want to follow along while you're watching, that's fine. But think about this too. In a drum circle, you could have multiple drummers, sometimes a large group, and everybody can be playing different things. But there's one drummer that leads. That's called the master drummer. That's the person that either starts the main rhythm or is keeping the tempo, basically by playing like a cowbell or some kind of just rhythm pattern on an instrument that's really attention getting, something you could hear. So anyway, I'll be the leader, but you can feel free to play along with me or even add patterns. Some of you may be experienced with drumming or have just rhythms inside of you want to play. That's fine. Feel free. So you could put notes in between the ones that I'm playing, something I'll talk about in part 2. But here we go. Here's the first one. I'm going to start bass. I'm going to go open, slap, and mute, all in the order we did. And again, just keep a nice relaxed tempo. I'll go back and forth between the few. You can play along. I'm going to start off by counting as well. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to mix it up and stop counting. For you to play along and enjoy. Any tones you want to do. Either hand, both hands, doesn't matter. All right, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed learning about the sounds and the drums, plus playing along. Please be sure to check out part 2 of this series. Thank you.